I'll bring the Butte-Silver Council Commissioners Committee of the Whole meeting to order for Tuesday, November 25th, 2025. Can I please have a roll call?
One presiding, 11 present, 0 absent.
Okay, thank you. Please let the record reflect we have everyone tonight. Commissioner Walker, would you please lead us in the prayer and the pledge? Next item on tonight's agenda is any public comment on any items that are on tonight's agenda. Ms. Bordoon, you have a communication on the agenda, so yes, yep. But if there's any member of the public that would like to speak on any items that are on tonight's agenda, now would be your opportunity. Welcome. Please come up to the podium and state your name and address for the record and which communication you're going to talk about.
Hello, I'm Ben Carr. I live at 821 West Silver Street, Butte, America. And so I'm speaking about selling, so I'm coming here as a taxpayer and I'm coming here also as a tenant of the building that's for sale, the business development building. And so I guess I'm kind of confused on the nature of it because it sounds like we're making a lot of concessions without getting a lot of security. So I'm a mental health therapist, and so we live in one of the suicide capitals of the nation, and this building has a lot of therapists that are helping kind of put the finger in the dam, so to speak. And so what I'm curious about is like, what's gonna happen if we guarantee that they're gonna honor my lease, and that lease is up in 6 months, and then we're gonna have a big exodus of therapists? So as somebody who has hired a lot of therapists over the years, I know it's hard to keep people in the community, especially in the mental health field, and I feel like that this might put a little bit more pressure on it. And I'm sure that you guys are like me, where it's like you want to make a difference in the world, right? We're not about necessarily dollars and cents. We got to balance the checkbook, so to speak, but we want the world to be a better place. If we sell something at half the value to somebody who's just going to benefit from it and push all of us out who are trying to make a difference, I'm not sure that makes sense. And I'm totally okay. I think it's totally reasonable to raise the rent, right, to make it a workable business or a workable system for the county. But I think as a whole, it's just very short-sighted. We're getting like half ends and not a whole deal one way or the other. So I guess that's what I have to say.
Okay, thank you. Is there any other member of the public that would like to speak on any item that's on tonight's agenda? Okay, seeing none, report of the chair. I don't have anything to really report on. I just want to wish everybody a happy Thanksgiving as we move into that, and thank you for tonight's meeting on a Tuesday instead of a Wednesday. Sometimes it's hard to retrain yourself to come on a different day. So moving on to section 1, bid openings, public hearings, and or presentations. Presentations, we do have one of them. Number 1, Communication 2025-562, Dave Aguirre, Community Enrichment Director, requesting Council Commissioners authorization to schedule a presentation on November 25th, 2025 to provide an update for the Municipal Parking Services CenturyLink Parking System. Mr. Aguirre.
Mr. Chairman, members of council, for the record, Dave Aguirre, Butte-Silver Community Enrichment Director. First, I'd like to thank you for taking the time, putting me on your agenda for tonight so I can provide this update for you on our new parking system.
Dave, can you just speak closer to the microphone, please?
Yep, you might have to tell me that again.
It's okay.
So I started my current job for Butte-Silver on January 27th of this year. And it wasn't on the 27th, but it was shortly after the 27th that Chief Executive Galler came to me and let me know it was a high priority to get this system up and running for Butte-Silver. Since then, I've heard Commissioner Callahan say a couple times that we owed this body an update on the parking system, which I wasn't aware of until I heard Commissioner Callahan say that. So that's what I'm doing here, and I hope not to take up too much of your time. I have about 5 slides, but I'll certainly stand for questions at the end to see if what I missed and if I can answer any of your questions. So Butte-Silver entered into a contract with Municipal Parking Systems in August of '24, and that contract was basically to provide parking services for Butte-Silver, which included system for the parking garage, for permitting people to park there and enforcing the parking within the parking garage. And it also included handhelds and safety sticks for areas outside of the parking garage. January 2025, the handheld system began to be implemented, which was really important because the old system that we had was struggling with both the handhelds as well as the system in the garage. In April, May, the parking garage came online, and the safety sticks were also implemented. In April, when the safety sticks were implemented, they started issuing tickets on them right away, simply because I didn't feel that it was necessary to warn people that they couldn't park in a yellow zone. So that shouldn't have been anything new. With the parking garage, we actually took a little bit different approach because the kiosk was broke in the parking garage before this new system, and people couldn't buy their permits to park in the garage. So they had gone, I'm not sure of the time frame, but they had gone some time without being able to pay in the parking garage. So they're used to parking in there for free because we couldn't issue tickets if they couldn't buy their permits to park. So with that, the parking garage came online in April, but we had it set to issue warning tickets instead of actual tickets. And we did that for about 30, 35 days, something like that. So it was the middle of May when the system in the parking garage actually started enforcing the parking rules. Let's see, August of this year was the first reconciliation we got. MPS has been excellent to work with. They really have. We got off to a bumpy start. Just getting things installed. It was the middle of January. They're not used to Montana in the middle of winter. But we've got rolling since then. The first reconciliation covered the first 6 months, basically, January through August. And then it'll be monthly thereafter, and has been. I've got a slide a little bit later to show you guys that. And then in September of this year, they actually came to Butte and provided some on-site training. And that seems a little backwards that we'd been operating for a while and then we got the training, but they had provided online training, but the contract required them to provide on-site training, and they, again, got here as they could. Got that done in September. So a little bit about the process for the paid parking lots. Nothing, that didn't change a whole lot. It didn't change at all, really. Cost remains $30 a month, same as it was before. Payment methods, they have to come into the Parking Enforcement Division here in the courthouse and buy their permits to park in those paid parking lots. And the main reason for that is simply because they've got to pick up a placard to be able to put in their car so the parking enforcement officers know that they've paid to park in the parking lots that they're in. With the parking garage, changed a little bit. I think the old parking system was simply daily parking. And this new system is really nice. It actually will charge by the hour. So you can park in the parking garage for as little as $1 for an hour. So if you're going to lunch in Uptown Butte and want to use the parking garage, it's $1. You don't have to pay for the whole day. And then it does go up to monthly sales as well. So it's $40 a month for a monthly pass to park in there. What we did do, worked with MPS on too, is to make it as simple as possible for people to be able to pay for this system. They can pay by the parking kiosks. There's 2 of them in the parking garage, one on the Park Street level and one on the Galena Street level. There's a mobile app that goes along with the CenturyLink system, and it supports both platforms for mobile applications, being Android and or Apple. And we've got QR codes throughout, signage with QR codes throughout the parking garage where people can actually scan the code to go to the app and download it, and they can pay that way. We've got links on our parking website on the Butte-Silver Bow page, which they click on that link and it'll take them right to the MPS site to pay. And then if all else fails or folks are afraid of technology, they can always come into the parking enforcement office and pay that way as well. Enforcement of the parking with the new systems has changed a little bit. Again, for the handheld units, not a whole lot different. The violations are documented by our parking enforcement officers, and they physically print the tickets and place them on the vehicles under their windshield wipers. And the thing that's a little bit unique about this system is that I believe there's a QR code right on the tickets that they can scan, take them to the website, and they can actually contest a ticket right online through the MPS system. I'll talk a little bit more about that under the parking garage portion. For the parking garage and safety sticks, this is where it becomes a little bit more unique than the other side, is the violations are actually documented by cameras. So in the situation of the parking garage, it takes a picture of the license plate upon entry, and then it takes a picture of the license plate upon exit. And if you hadn't paid, then it starts the ticket process. And basically what it does, if you hadn't paid to park in there, it sends the violation to MPS staff. They go into the system and they review it for validity, which is basically the time frame that you were in the parking garage, along with both pictures, entry and exit being visible. And then they go ahead and validate it if it is a valid ticket. Then it goes over to Butte-Silver Bow's queue within the system, and our Butte-Silver Bow parking staff then do the exact same thing as MPS staff. They validate, look at the times, entry, exit, make sure that it's a valid ticket, there wasn't a mistake, and that both license plates are visible. Validated by both parties, then MPS mails the tickets. Once folks get the tickets, they also have the ability here to contest the tickets by scanning the QR code on the ticket, which is, on one hand is really, really great because people have the chance to easily contest a ticket. On the other hand, it's pretty resource intensive because a lot of tickets get contested. And a very small minority of them are not valid tickets. And really that's what we're reviewing them for, is whether it's a valid ticket or not. Really trying to get out of the practice of voiding valid tickets and forcing folks to pay, while at the same time being reasonable. If grandma's got a broken leg or something, we're certainly not cold-hearted that way. Now this is one of them slides that when I put this together and gave it to Barb, it made a ton of sense. Now that I'm going back and looking at it, I'm not sure that it does. So I guess what I'd like you to take away from this is the way the contract basically works is, on the revenue side for the parking permit stuff, that revenue is 100% Butte-Silver Bow. And for the ticket revenue, for the most part, it's split 50-50 between Butte-Silver Bow and MPS. Now, there's all kinds of different caveats within the contract that I don't believe was the update that you guys were looking for, so I didn't include them in here. And then these are the revenues generated by date. Don't really have any comparisons. The unbolded numbers on the left are basically the total revenues for each month, and then the bolded numbers are Butte-Silver Bow shares. And you can see January, February, March, it's exactly half, 50-50. Begin in April when the the parking sticks and parking garage began coming online, you can see that Butte-Silver Bow's portion increased above half with them coming online. And it has certainly pretty much consistently increased for the most part each month. Not sure if that's because the parking garage and the sticks were up and operating, or if it's just the middle of summer, busy travel season. MPS, I am working with MPS to build us some reports that will provide us better data, but they got it to me after I turned in this presentation, and it wasn't ready for prime time in any stretch. I looked at it for 5 minutes and had to send it back to them. It wasn't what I was looking for, so. And with that, I would certainly try to answer any questions that you guys might have.
Thank you, Mr. Aguirre. Do any of the commissioners have any questions? Commissioner Callahan?
Thank you, Thank you, Chairman Morgan. Thank you, Mr. Gary. I appreciate you coming and informing us on that. I mean, we were pretty excited to get this up and running, and we hadn't heard anything on how the progress was. And I noticed a huge difference in the delinquent people on parking in the yellow and fire hydrants. You're not seeing much of that anymore. All it takes is one ticket, and that pretty much fixes people. So we appreciate all that, and it looks to me like your department's moving upwards. I mean, it was pretty well down in the dumps when you took over. It's one direction to go, and it looks like you're doing a good job at keeping it going that direction. I guess I got a question. We pulled up tonight, and they're out in front of the courthouse. Is that like an 8 to 5 time frame, or we park out in front of the courthouse? We could be here for 3 hours, and it's 30-minute parking. Do we get these tickets, or is that the business parking usually is from 8 to 5, I think, and then after that they don't have 2-hour parking? Is that right?
Mr. Aguirre?
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Callahan, you could expect a ticket in the mail when you get home. No, in all seriousness, yes, it would be the same as the 2-hour parking zone. And those parking sticks out, I think there's 4 of them out in front of the courthouse now. Those were actually an idea of MPS when they came here on their in-person training. She was here for 3 days, 3.5 days, something like that, and she came to us and said, you know, I was here for a very short time, and I saw these spots being very abused. You want to make sure that this is turning over so people have access to your employees in the courthouse. And so we said, hey, let's give it a try and see what happens. I don't believe they've actually turned on yet, okay. but it will only be between the same as the 2-hour parking zone hours.
Follow-up, Commissioner Callahan.
One other question. You were talking about how bad that's abused out there. I was here a couple of days in a row, and the same planning department truck had been there 2 days in a row, hadn't even been moved. And I'm thinking, look at the parking that this truck's taking, that it should be parked up in the lot out in back. So when that happens, did the department get the ticket, or how do we handle that?
Mr. Aguirre?
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Callahan, I didn't see the truck there for days. I would think that we try not to ticket other departments within there, but I think I'll reach out to Julia and see if we can't make sure folks aren't parking in there outside the time frame.
Great, thank you. Thanks a lot. Keep up the good work.
Thank you, sir.
One of the things that I would say that this works is I've actually received phone calls from a couple people that told me that they were a lucky recipient of receiving a ticket in the mail. And I said, well, was it legit? And they said, well, yeah, I parked in the parking garage and I got a ticket. And I said, well, why didn't you pay to park there? And they said, well, it's notorious that Butte-Silver Bow never tickets you for parking in the parking garage. And I said, well, obviously that's changed. And so that shows that it's working, and that, people were used to not paying, and now they're being ticketed. So the process does seem to work. The one question that I have on that, when you start to look at the numbers, the total revenue of $59K, and of that, Butte-Silver Bow gets 33. It seems like it's pretty heavily tilted that they get paid quite a bit for their services. And is that part of that verification or validation process that's covering that price, or is that is that cost gonna kind of stay that 50/50 all the way through these contracts?
Mr. Chairman, members of council, so the contract is a 50/50 split on tickets, and so I wouldn't expect that to change. There's some qualifiers that are built into the contract, like these safety sticks are supposed to have they've got a minimum fee that they've got to meet, and if they don't meet that through performance, Butte-Silver is supposed to pay MPS for that. They have waived that. If we void valid tickets, we still owe MPS like a $7 charge for that. They voided those. Well, they voided those for that through that first reconciliation because it came back, and after the split, we were actually paying them money. And me and Director Hassler met with them and visited with them on it and felt that was very unfair because we hadn't had the official training, and we had the problems bringing stuff online, and so we were voiding a lot of tickets when we first brought it online because of people not being aware. So they worked with us. They waived all those fees. They brought back that charge for voiding tickets in September, was the first one, and we had one fee of $7. So.
But in general, just to follow up on that question, when I say the 59,000 in total revenue and the 33, that difference is being paid by the person paying the ticket, right? It's not the difference of so the 59,000, which was the total of that, Butte-Silver got 33,000 of it. That difference, it was paid by the person getting the ticket. It wasn't Butte-Silver was paying that. I just want to clarify that for the public, if that's correct.
Mr. Chairman, members of council, that's correct, but it's not only tickets, it's also the permit revenue.
Right, okay. Commissioner Healy.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair Morgan. I was just going to comment, when we went to Silver Lake and I didn't know where to park, I came into the parking commission and asked for a slip. They gave me a slip so that way I wouldn't get a ticket because I didn't know how long I was going to be gone at Silver Lake. So that's an option too, isn't it? Is that just for people who work here?
Mr. Aguirre.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Healy. Yeah, for Butte-Silver employees, there are free parking passes. So if a commissioner was in need of those, they would certainly be able to give you one of those.
Sure.
That is basically for the lot behind the courthouse, though. It's not for on-street parking or anything like that. Yeah.
Question, Commissioner O'Leary.
Thank you, Chairman Morgan. Thank you for the presentation, Mr. Aguirre. Just a couple quick questions. I've seen a couple folks servicing those posts, down on Park Street. And are those Butte-Silver employees or are those MPS employees?
Mr. Aguirre.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner O'Leary, I believe those would be MPS contractors.
Okay.
Follow up, Commissioner O'Leary.
And then you were on the page where you were noting revenues. Are those collected revenues or the ticketed revenues? So actually collected money, and do we know what the percentage of tickets that are actually getting paid is?
Mr. Aguirre.
Mr. Chairman, still getting used to this. Commissioner O'Leary, that's actually collected revenues. I don't have that ratio of ticketed versus collected, but we need improvement there. There's no doubt in my mind.
Okay. On the question, Commissioner Fisher.
Thank you, Chairman Morgan. Thank you, Dave. Appreciate you being here. Looks like things are working out good. Are we paid on a monthly, quarterly? How do we receive our funds?
Mr. Aguirre.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Fisher, monthly basis now that we're rolling, it just runs a couple months behind because they got to process the data.
Follow up, Commissioner Fisher.
Thank you, Chairman Morgan. Thank you once again. So, and then that money goes into the parking enforcement fund budget?
Mr. Aguirre.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Fisher, I believe it would go back into the general fund.
Any other questions? Commissioner Callahan.
Thank you, Chairman Morgan. Mr. Gray, I was just curious if we had any problems with vandalism.
Mr. Aguirre.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Callahan, haven't heard of anything happening to them yet. I've seen a few stickers on them, but they haven't impeded the camera to date, so nothing to date that I'm aware of.
Great, that's good news. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions? Well, thank you for the presentation.
Thank you.
Moving on to Section 2, Communications. Communication number 2025-249, Patty and Chris Solomon requesting Council of Commissioners approval to purchase a portion of the land owned by Butte-Silver Bow, which is adjacent to their property located at 17 Tullamore Street. We'll continue to hold that in abeyance pending a report back from the Land Sales Committee. Number 2, Communication number 2025-437. You will recall that we took action on this a couple weeks ago, so we don't need to take action on this one again. So just for the record to show that Communication 25-437, Thomas Kanicki, personal representative for the estate of William LaHood, requesting Council Commissioners to purchase land owned by Butte-Silver Bow and approve the sale of Lot 16 and 17 to the estate of William LaHood in the amount of $1,000. We just won't take any action on that. That was inadvertently added to tonight's agenda. So I'll move on to communication number 2025-460. Steve Maloney, Butte resident, requesting Council of Commissioners to purchase a portion of the tax parcel number 00018924000, pending a survey to be completed and a correction deed. Mr. Maloney has been in contact with me, and he was planning on being at the council meeting tonight, but with Thanksgiving, he traveled to family members outside of Butte, so he respectively asked if we would hold this in abeyance until the December 3rd meeting, which he will be in attendance to talk about his position on this. So if it's okay with this body, we'll just continue to hold this in abeyance till the December 3rd date. Is that okay? Moving on to number 4, Communication 2025-500, Angie Mulliken, Public Works Budget Manager, requesting Council of Commissioners to schedule a bid opening on November 19th, 2025 for the Silver Lake Industrial Water System Improvements Project. We did have this bid opening on the 19th, so Commissioner Thatcher.
Thank you, Chairman Morgan. At this time, I'd like to make a motion to place on file communication number 2025-500.
Okay, there's been a motion made and seconded to place communication 2025-500 on file. Is there anything on the question? Would anyone, or nothing on the question, would everyone please vote? Would anyone like to change their vote? Would the clerk please record the vote?
12 yea, 0 nay.
Thank you. Motion passes. Number 5, Communication 25-519, Jessica LaProuse, Law Enforcement Budget Analyst, requesting Council of Commissioners authorization to schedule a public hearing for November 19th, 2025 for the purpose of amending the fiscal year 25-26 budget to allow for increased expenditures of unanticipated revenue for gas masks provided to the Butte-Silver Bow Law Enforcement Agency, a donation town pump. We did have this public hearing last week, so Commissioner Thatcher.
Thank you, Chairman Morgan. I'd like to make a motion to place on file communication number 2025-519.
Thanks. A motion has been made to place communication 25-519 on file. Is there anything on the question? Would everyone please vote? Would anyone like to change their vote? Would the clerk please record the vote?
12 yea, 0 nay.
Thank you. Motion passes. Number 6, Communication 25-520, William F. McGinnis, 807 North Montana Street, Butte, Montana, requesting Council of Commissioners authorization to purchase property on parcel number 000-190-5650. We'll continue to hold that in abeyance pending the report from the Land Sales Committee. Number 7, Communication 25-535, Angie Mulliken, Public Works Budget Manager, requesting Council of Commissioners authorization to schedule a public hearing on November 19th, 2025, for the purpose of soliciting comments on unanticipated revenue from the Department of Natural Resources and Conservation, DNRC. We did have this public hearing last week, so Commissioner Thatcher.
Thank you, Chairman Morgan. I'd like to make a motion to place on file communication number 2025-535.
There's been a motion made and seconded to place communication 25-535 on file. Is there anything on the question? Would everyone please vote? Would anyone like to change their vote? Would the clerk please record the vote?
12 yea, 0 nay.
Okay, thank you. Motion passes. Number 8, communication 25-542, Will O'Connor, Land Records Coordinator, requesting Council of Commissioners to deny Council Communication 24-460, a request from Steve Maloney to purchase a portion of the city-county-owned property, portion of tax parcel number 0018924000. Again, we'll just continue to hold this in abeyance as it is in reference to Communication 25-460, where Mr. Maloney will be before this body on December 3rd. Number 9, Communication 25-545, Sean Frederickson, Parks and Rec Director, requesting Council of Commissioners authorization to schedule a presentation on November 19th, 25 to provide an update on current operations and projects related to parks, Highland View Golf Course, and Ridgewaters Park. We did have this presentation last week, so Commissioner Thatcher.
Thank you, Chairman Morgan. I'd like to make a motion to place on file communication number 2025-545.
Thank you. There's been a motion made and seconded to place communication 25-545 on file. Is there anything on the question? Would everyone please vote? Would anyone like to change their vote? Would the clerk please record the vote?
12 yea, 0 nay.
Thank you. Motion passes. Number 10, Communication 2025-546, Sarah Bordoon, Butte, Montana, requesting Council of Commissioners to answer some questions from the October 16th, 2025 public forum Beyond the Boom on November 12th, 2025 regarding impacts the data center that may be coming to Butte, Montana. Just as the Commission will recall, this communication was forwarded to the TED Board, and they did have a meeting on Friday, not last Friday, the Friday before. It was well attended by members of public, as well as the members of the board, and SABE was also there, and representatives from Northwestern Energy were there also, including Ms. Bordoon. And so, Ms. Bordoon, do you have an update on this?
Well,
Or just in general conversation?
Yeah, I found that TED meeting to be very informative. It was specific to the SABE data center, of course, because that is the company that wants to locate in Montana Connections. But it didn't address, of course, the Atlas expansion in the Mike Mansfield Testing Center, and nor did the responses from the Beyond the Boom questions weren't answered. They were answered in reference, I believe, to the SABE data centers primarily, and not the Atlas. So I just have a few follow-up questions. So one is that the state of Montana, the property taxes for data centers is 0.09%. And I believe that would apply to Atlas data centers in the Mike Mansfield Center as a flat rate, and then they would have depreciation of their assets over a short amount of time, like we presented in Beyond the Boom. But the SABE data center taxation is more of a mystery to me because it's inside Montana Connections, and that's a special taxation business development encouragement for businesses. And so I'm curious about how that would actually play out. And so I think it would be helpful to understand, you know, even if they're not real numbers, what taxation would happen to a data center inside that entity versus outside that entity. if that makes sense.
Sure.
Okay.
So you're asking that additional question. Obviously you stated that question tonight, and maybe Butte-Silver Bow staff, Chief Executive Gallagher could maybe address that question at either a future council meeting or even next week if they have it, we could segregate it out of this meeting. Chief Executive Gallagher?
Chairman Morgan, yeah, that would be fine. We would be prepared to answer both of those questions on, what the taxation would be, and also the difference of Atlas and what Atlas is as compared to the SABE project as well, and in the different districts.
Great. Yeah, in the TED board meeting, SABE Data Centers was able to answer a lot of the questions of like water reuse and that sort of thing. And that's a follow-up question that I have of them, is that there was a comment that perhaps the water reuse would be of a large office building, and then we pressed a little further to understand what that might be. And the SABE Data Center representative on the phone said maybe 10 to 15 million gallons a year, which is a lot less than what had been commented prior at a council commission meeting of maybe 3 million gallons a day. So that's a wide range. I am wondering if it's within the TED board's powers to get a water use contract with SABE, and how that works. Maybe that could be understood. Also, I am curious about where Atlas gets their water, because they don't get it from Silver Lake. There's no supply to that area. So I am curious, because data centers do have to do a lot of cooling, is it just the construction of Atlas Data Center that because it's so open, that's how they do a lot of their cooling? I know they want to double their megawatt usage in the next year with a contract with Northwestern Energy. So that's another question I have. Okay, and I think that's it for tonight, unless people have questions of me.
Do any of the commissioners have any questions for Ms. Bordoon? I will say that I obviously attended the TED board meeting, and I was pretty happy of the response that we had with it. I feel that the company being on the phone was able to answer a lot of the questions that came up on the fly, and were able to give detailed answers on it. I also appreciated that there really wasn't any true time constraints, in the sense that they could answer the questions, and like Ms. Bordoon mentioned, they would answer and we would drill again on a follow-up question. And so I think that the venue was an appropriate forum to answer a lot of the questions. And then, with Northwestern Energy being there as well, we were able to get a lot of the questions answered by the people that needed to be there to answer the questions. And so I think that process worked rather well in the sense of getting those questions answered. So I did appreciate staff as well as members of the public being there from all parties to make sure that, it was being represented. The Montana Standard was there as well, and I think they did an article on it too. So I would just say that. On the question, Commissioner O'Leary.
Thank you, Chairman Morgan. Thank you, Ms. Bordoon, for being here. I agree that the meeting was quite informative. I asked quite a few questions, and I appreciated their answers as well. Just on the Atlas data center, I do believe that they're an entirely air-cooled setup, so that I don't believe there's any water consumed there. I agree with your question about trying to get an understanding of how this money potentially could be used. I think it might be worthwhile for us as a county to sit down and put pen to paper on what we would expect revenues to be, how those revenues potentially could be used either within the TIFID or outside the TIFID. Those are all certainly things that we should probably discuss so that the public understands. And I know that there was conversation about the large electricity users, Northwestern Energy and the PSC creating an additional tariff, another I guess, type of user
Yes.
and a separate tariff. And I would also like to see that, discussed further at the PSC before, this thing all happens, because I agree with you that that's a major concern. So thank you for being here. I
Yeah.
appreciate the questions.
The other thing that I would mention too from that meeting is there were minutes taken at that meeting, and so this body will be forwarded those minutes as well for your review for those of you that weren't able to attend it, and so those will be coming out as soon as staff gets those prepared. So, I guess if there's no other questions, being that there is a couple other questions that are being asked, I would ask if it's okay just to hold this communication in abeyance.
Chairman
in
Morgan,
committee
I
though.
have one more comment. I apologize. I thought I was done, but I do remember one more point was that one point at the TED meeting that Northwestern Energy and also the Energy Task Force Representative Bob Morris made was the idea that the larger loads you have on the electrical system, the lower the rates should be. And also in the study that was cited and the answers by staff from the county commissioners was saying a similar thing. But they were citing, I believe, North Dakota as an example of lowering rates with larger loads. And with the idea of supply and demand, it does make sense. If you have a lot of supply, that the rates would go lower as you add more load, because you would distribute across the supply and there would be more ratepayers. But in the state of Montana with Northwestern Energy imports energy from outside the state. I believe it's 25%. And so our demand is actually, our supply is less than our current demand. And even with Colstrip coming online, with the megawatts that are coming online, still our supply would be less than what the data centers are being promised. And so I think that's where ratepayers are very concerned.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you.
Thank you.
So if this body's okay with it, I would just hold this in abeyance. Okay, hold it in committee of the whole. Okay, thank you. Number 11, communication 2025-562. David Geary, Community Enrichment Director, requesting Council Commissioners authorization to schedule the presentation on November 25th, 2025 to provide an update on the municipal parking services CenturyLink parking system. We did have this presentation tonight, so Commissioner Thatcher.
Thank you, Chairman Morgan. I'd like to make a motion to place on file communication number 2025-562.
There's been a motion made and seconded to place communication 25-562 on file. Is there anything on the question? Will everyone please vote? Would anyone like to change their vote? Would the clerk please record the vote?
12 yea, 0 nay.
Thank you. Motion passes. Number 12, communication 2025-570, Karen Burns, Community Development Director, requesting Council Commissioners approval of recommendation to award the RFP for sale of the 305 West Mercury Street to Jeff Riggs and Keith Waring. What's the pleasure of the council on this communication? Is there any? Miss Burns, I would ask a follow-up question, if I will, or if I can. I was poised with a question this week by a constituent that was asking the question on, by getting rid of this building, are we putting Butte-Silver Bow in jeopardy of not having the available space for expansion in the future, and/or we all know that the study commission is looking at maybe changing the form of the government, which could include more full-time staff. Would we be doing a disservice to Butte-Silver Bow by taking that office space away if we did get rid of this building, in your opinion?
Thank you, Chairman Morgan, members of council. I don't believe so. I do believe that we do have some excess space in Butte-Silver Bow's possession. In the courthouse here, I do know that there is some underutilized space on the 4th floor. On the 1st floor, we created a storage or a staging area for construction. We could draw straws, who gets the old men's bathroom as an office, but it is a usable space and could be turned into an office. We also have space on the 1st floor just across from the parking commission. It was a storage area for the clerk and recorder's office. That could be utilized as space as well. I would say that I know at the health department, they have an open pod. Community enrichment vacated that pod to move into the Don Peoples complex. So I know that there is space there, and I also believe that there is some space still remaining in the Don Peoples complex for additional offices. So I do feel like we have some ability to absorb additional staff or offices if needed.
Okay, thank you. Chief Executive Gallagher, just one quick question on that. I mean, do you know of any plan in your administration or anything coming up where you would need to be utilizing additional space that we don't have?
Chairman Morgan, Commissioners, currently I think we're able to facilitate the staff that we have. I know the Study Commission is looking at potentially, a change of government and what that looks like. I don't know, any of us really know what that's going to look like, but we do have office space available as was stated, at the Don Peoples complex. We have space available throughout different areas in Butte-Silver Bow that could be accommodated. The health department, as is stated, there's a pod down there. Also, we have some space even still available out at the new public works building, our complex out there. There's office space in there as well. So I don't think we'll have any problem doing that. It's just a matter of figuring out who's going to go to what space when that happens.
Okay, thank you, Chief Executive. Commissioner Thatcher.
Thank you, Chairman Morgan. I'm hoping that it would be okay with the rest of council. I do see Mr. Riggs in the audience, and I know that some commissioners had some concerns, and I'm wondering maybe from last week's conversation, and I know Mr. Carr in the audience had a concern this evening as well, if maybe we could call him up and have him just address those concerns directly, if he's willing.
Mr. Riggs.
Chairman Morgan, members of council, thanks for having me up here. And when I saw Dave in here, I got a little nervous because I think I might have an unpaid parking ticket, and I didn't know if he was here to harass me, or I was really happy to see him actually on the agenda. So don't worry, I'll get that paid soon. I do want to address a couple of concerns that have come up about the sale of this building. And before doing that, I want to acknowledge that Commissioner O'Leary and Commissioner Anderson, that you seem like you're not in favor of this, and I honestly don't. I don't think it's an open and shut case, and I appreciate your guys' opinion and the position that you have, and what your taxpayers, what you're trying to protect, and I do acknowledge and appreciate that part of this. And it's one of the things that I love about this community is that people care and they're passionate about it, and I love that about this community, and I think that it's something that is kept it going and is continuing to make it grow and get better and better. And so a couple of the concerns, a smaller one, but someone had brought up a couple weeks ago, was about conference space. And one thing that we put in our agreement or our proposal was to be able to, we have a website set up where people in our Thornton building, our office building there, can sign up for any conference room. I think there's 4 conference rooms and a classroom in that building, and that's utilized by anybody in that area. And we're going to do this, we would do the same thing in this building as well. And we would say that our friends at the URA utilize that conference room in the BDC, and we would absolutely want them to continue to use that in the city if they needed use of a conference room, a classroom, all that would be in the same website to go sign up for space, and that would be something that we would certainly encourage the city to be able to do. I just wanted to address Mr. Carr's comments about the mental health counselors, and part of our presentation that we gave when we first bought the Thornton building, one of the first things we did there was we had a mental health consortium in the ballroom in that building, and we gave out little flyers to people about office space in the building, and that was when it was a pretty low percentage ownership of that building, and it was something that is important to me and kind of close to me, and I know it's a very specific and particular thing, but we really worked hard to be supportive and of that industry. And I would say you could reach out to, we have 15 mental health counselors in the Thornton building right now, and I'd say reach out to any of them and ask them about their experience with us and if they feel like it's going well for them. And so I appreciate your concern and just wanted to address that. I think the price is a tough one, and again, that's, I think, a lot of the concern here is what are we selling this for, and what does this look like? And I think there's multiple ways, as an investor, there's multiple ways to value a building. One of them is like a rebuild value, and in that case, any of these buildings uptown is completely out of sight, like 10, 20, $30 million to rebuild it as it looks like, and that's the beauty of the history of the uptown buildings, is they're really irreplaceable, and so it's hard to value it from that perspective. And how we've valued them is through an investment and what that cost looks like versus what we're bringing in the income. And I know that during our presentation we put up very quickly a spreadsheet, and I don't know if anyone had any time to go over it and look at it, but it is kind of a break even where it is right now, and that's very similar to some of the other spaces that we bought. We're in the same boat where we were able to then grow them where they were, and so that's something that I don't disagree. Is it worth more than $450,000? If you had to rebuild it, it's not even close. It doesn't cover 10% of that, and so I agree with that. But what I would say to the price of it is that right now, Butte-Silver, and I think they've done a valiant job of working in this building and owning this building. But at the end of the day, they're reacting. They're repairing things that are broken or need fixed. And what we want to do is not just repair things, but revitalize. And that's kind of been the crux of our investments, is we feel like we're revitalizing a building and then a small neighborhood and a small community. And we have two other buildings very close to this one, and we feel like that's kind of what we're doing in this area. Is we're trying to change the neighborhood and change the narrative there. And was talking to Holly at the SBDDC, and their truck got vandalized a few months ago, and she was talking about the security. There's no security out in that parking lot, and those are things like that are right up our wheelhouse, and things that we can again help and revitalize that area. And that's probably my strongest argument for taking over this building, is that we don't want to just react and repair, but to revitalize it. And I'm happy to answer any questions anybody would have.
Follow-up, Commissioner Thatcher.
Thank you, Chairman Morgan. Thank you, Mr. Riggs. I appreciate it. We received an email this afternoon from a person who toured the BDC, I think maybe alongside you or on one of the days that it was available. And one of the reasons that she decided not to submit a bid was because of major repairs that would be required in the near future. She listed a full roof replacement, a boiler replacement within the next 7 to 10 years, parapet, I think I'm saying that, I'm not sure, repair, and replacement of all windows. Firstly, would you agree with all of that? And then on top of it, what other major things, I know you talked about the doors, security you just mentioned, what other things are you thinking would need to be repaired going forward?
Mr. Riggs.
Chairman Morgan, members of the council, I think that the first thing, and we talked a little bit about it in our presentation, would be the security in the building and making sure people feel safe, getting some lights in the parking lot, getting that door fixed, getting a new security system so that it's not relied on the tenants to have to kind of be the last person out, set the alarm kind of a thing, but more of a professional and an office situation. And so those are kind of like day one tasks that we would look at doing. And then, to be completely honest, I know there are other things in there that need to be addressed, and I think that doing a couple of walkthroughs wasn't an efficient or a sufficient enough time to really like dig in to what needs to be done and what those priorities look like. But I think it's something that, again, with the history of the buildings that we've had and kind of how we're able to go through that process, that's where we feel comfortable at this price, being able to take this on and do the things that need to be done, regardless of what we find when we really dig into the building and our crews over there and looking into, again, what we can do to revitalize that space. So I think that we know some things right away that we want to do, and the vast majority of those are safety and security. And past that, then we'll kind of reconvene. And I know that's a huge leap of faith for you guys to trust someone to take that on and not double people's rent and do all these things that everybody's concerned about. And again, I understand those concerns, and I don't take that trust lightly. And it's been that way with the very first building we got, that First Baptist Church, where we made a handshake agreement with the folks that the Baptist church community, and I take that seriously, and it's something that we will do everything we can to honor the building and the history of it and continue to revitalize that space.
Follow up, Commissioner Thatcher? No, good. Commissioner, nope, you're good. Commissioner Fisher?
Thank you, Chairman Morgan. Thank you, Mr. Riggs. Appreciate you being here. If we were to approve the sale of this, is this something would close before the first of the year?
Mr. Riggs?
Chairman Morgan, members of the commission, members of council, sorry. I think that that's something we would negotiate, and if it was something that the city said we need to do this before the end of the year, we could, if we needed to. I think our preference would be to start it just after the first of the year, just so that it's a clean year of books and accounting and that kind of thing. But that's something that's very low on our priority list as far as what that actual date looks like. So we would be flexible on what that date would look like.
Commissioner Fisher, just on that question, to get this process by the end of the year procedurally, there would have to be a resolution that would be introduced, which would be that first week in December, and then it goes through 2 readings. And so time frame might be a little short to get it by the end of the year. Just talking to procedurally, just so you're aware, as you probably are. Commissioner Fisher.
Thank you, Chairman Morgan. I thought here a couple weeks ago we had a resolution prepared, and we just weren't quite ready to move it forward yet. That's not true?
County Attorney Enruth or Ms. Burns, I'll let you answer that. Ms. Burns.
Thank you, Chairman Morgan, members of council, Commissioner Fisher. So we would introduce the resolution after this body makes the approval to sell the property. And so we have a draft, but it hasn't been submitted to this body yet.
So just to talk about that procedure as well, so if this body passed it tonight, it would be in the committee of the whole report, which would have to be adopted at the December 3rd meeting. So technically, the resolution wouldn't be introduced until the following week, which is the next regular meeting, which would not allow for proper time. So by the end of the year, it gets even more difficult. So Commissioner O'Leary, unless Commissioner Fisher has a follow-up. No, Commissioner O'Leary.
Thank you, Chairman Morgan. I guess I won't belabor any of the points that I said last week, but I did, Ms. Director Burns sent us a copy of the resolution, or her draft resolution, And one of the things that I don't see in the resolution is any discussion about timelines regarding this property. You know, there was a discussion of your plans for the building, but you know, are we going to hold whoever this building goes to, or if it goes to somebody, to a particular timeline of certain renovations, or do we have details about what those renovations are going to be, what those expectations might be? I don't see anything in the resolution that has any details about requirements of investment or upgrades. You know, one thing I'll point out is that this county sold another property on West Park Street on an RFP about 3 years ago, with stipulations that work was going to start within 18 months, and that still hasn't happened. No procedure or no movement has happened on that. So I'm just you know, concerned about the lack of details in this, and to me it kind of feels like a little bit like a cart before the horse. I feel like we should have lots of details about what the expectations are, and you know, what we are expecting of Mr. Riggs, if anything, besides just some kind of broad general statements about what his plans are for the building. Additionally, you know, I'd like to know if we are intending to put any restrictions on resale of this building. You know, as far as I can see in the resolution, there's nothing that would restrict him from buying this building, raising rents, and reselling it within a year. Not saying that you're going to do that, but that's just you know, concerns I have. So, thank you.
Commissioner O'Leary, was there a question in there, or was it a statement? Sure. Ms. Burns, do you have anything to?
Thank you, Chairman Morgan, members of council, Commissioner O'Leary. I would say it's a draft. As I stated, it is a first draft. Thank you.
The one question that I would have, Ms. Burns, is I have not reviewed the draft in its entirety, but clawback period, sometimes we've put those into these resolutions so that if something doesn't happen within a certain amount of time, we have the ability to get the property back. My question on that is, you know, at the end of the day, this body is, if it determines, it sells property, and once we transfer ownership, we lose the ability to mandate a lot of changes for the building. I mean, to expect them to say you have to have this upgraded by X amount of time, and we want to see a new roof on it. I mean, it kind of gets to the point of, well, who actually still owns the building at that point? And so I think, you know, what we need to try to focus on is like a clawback thing that says, hey, if we give you the property like we have given entities before, that after 3 years nothing happens, do we still have the ability to get that property back? That is for our legal scholar here to write that into that form. But that stuff to me is more controlling than, you know, you have to do certain enhancements within a certain amount of time, or we take it back, because at the end of the day, we are selling a building to a private group to do something with. But my question to you is clawback. Are you considering adding something like that to it?
Thank you, Chairman Morgan, members of council. Historically, when we use the clawback provision, it is when we're selling a property that's extremely degraded, or, you know, that doesn't have any systems in it, it's a shell of a building, or it's vacant land. And we are requiring them to make a certain level of investment in that property within a time frame, and if they don't, we take that back. I don't consider this technically the same situation, given the fact that we are selling it. I know it's been debated long and hard. I'm not going to get into that anymore of the value, but the value of the building is set at a price that I believe would be hard for us to say we're holding you to a lot of conditions, but there could be some conditions that we would ask that, you know, certain investment be made, or certain a safety upgrade or something like that in the building. And so the draft resolution is just that, it's a draft. Mr. Riggs has not even seen that draft yet. And so I think that it's something that we're kind of getting a little bit ahead of ourselves. But I did take notes as to what the commission has suggested that they might like to see in that resolution. And I would be happy to discuss that and negotiate that with Mr. Riggs. I believe that's part of my job and what makes sense. And, you know, hopefully I answered your question. That's
Yes.
sort of talking, sorry.
Thank you. Commissioner Commissioner O'Leary on the follow-up, and Commissioner Thatcher, Commissioner Fisher.
Thank you, Chairman Morgan. I guess procedurally, I have a really hard time with this because we're trying to vote on something that we don't have a full picture on, which is really hard for us to do. And I guess, you know, maybe this is the way we've done it in the past, but, you know, if we're going to sell a building to a developer, it feels like we should have all the details about what our expectations are before we agree to allow the county to enter into a buy-sell with a party. So I guess I don't know if that's possible in this certain circumstance, but it seems like it would be a reasonable thing to do for this body to get the full picture of what we are expecting of this person before we are making a vote.
So on that question, the only thing that I would say is this communication would basically give the option for Director Burns to draft the resolution for this body to consider. This communication before us doesn't actually give the property to Mr. Riggs and his company. It just gives Ms. Burns's department the ability to draft the resolution to be introduced, to then be edited or changed by this body. To have the time and effort go into a resolution without the council at least giving buy-in enough to say let's proceed could waste a lot of staff time in order to draft a resolution that could potentially die, you know, as it hits the floor. And so, you know, procedurally, this just gives the ability that says, hey, we're going to move forward in the process. We expect a resolution, and then the details can be hammered out in that resolution. That's why it goes to judiciary. That's why it comes back to the body and then back and forth. So that would be my only comment on that, on the procedural question on that. Commissioner Thatcher.
Thank you, Chairman Morgan. I completely agree with you on that. And also, I guess I'm a little confused because what's the point of an RFP? I mean, that's kind of laying out what we want to see with it, what the idea is. And I understand your concerns with certain other things that Director Burns may or may not put in the resolution, and County Attorney Enruth. But part of my understanding is the reason we went out for an RFP was, you know, so we can kind of understand what exactly we want to see from this property. I do have a question for County Attorney Enruth, though. If this body decides that we aren't going to sell this property to Mr. Riggs, and considering the many repairs that are required on this building, or say to this, the Silver Bow Disability Development Council, however you say that, their van, is there any liability Butte-Silver Bow is facing when we see safety concerns or building concerns? Do we take on, I mean, I'm thinking we do, take on any liability in that regard?
County Attorney Enruth.
Chairman Morgan, Commissioner Thatcher, yes, the county is always, you know, responsible for its buildings that it owns. You know, this building isn't to the point that it is dilapidated in such an effect that, you know, we could have issues now, but yes, just like with any building that we own, if we do not go in and repair it and we know that there's an issue, that could create a liability. And then just on Chairman Morgan's comment, that is correct. The commission tonight is not voting to actually sell the property. You're simply voting to give Director Burns the ability to start that process, you know, with the individual that's been awarded the RFP, which is we then get into the detailed resolution, or as Director Burns and I spoke about earlier today, a simple resolution with a detailed purchase and sale agreement, but they're coupled together rather than separate. So that's just for everybody's understanding of how the procedure should go tonight. You're not voting to sell the property tonight. You're voting to simply allow Director Burns to continue forth with the discussions on selling the property and what those possible outcomes look like.
Commissioner Fisher.
Thank you, Chairman Morgan. you know, we're getting into a lot of different stuff, and county attorney just enlightened us to some real things. But, you know, if they've got the money, you know, they're buy a building as is, where is, and you can throw some contingencies in there, but if they're gonna pay the $450,000 and we collect the money and they take the building as is, where is, I think Mr. Riggs has had a real convincing point tonight, and he sold me on the idea that I think he's probably a good person to buy the building and move forward, so I'm ready to not ride the fence no more. I look for somebody to make a motion, and let's vote.
Commissioner Boyle.
Yeah, at this time, I'd like to make a motion that we concur and place on file this communication.
Okay, there's been a motion made and seconded to concur with communication 2025-570 and place on file. Is there anything on the question? On the question, Commissioner Anderson.
Thank you very much, Chairman Morgan. Thank you, Mr. Riggs, for being here. I do appreciate it, and thank you for asking the questions. One thing keeps on popping back into my mind, though, that you said, and it's something that I've been an advocate of a long time. These buildings are priceless, and they cost a tremendous amount to rebuild. And when I look at that vacant space on Park Street, it reminds me of that daily. Whenever I drive by it, I look by and go, yeah, still nothing there. So it's good, and it's a very worthwhile task to look at these older buildings in our community and repurpose them. I was driving down and I saw the work being done on the Exeter Dance, can't think of the name of it, where the wine bar is in the Mediterranean place. But anyway, I digress. As far as this building goes, I think you would do good things with it, and I have a feeling it will go to you. I will not be voting to sell it to you, though, for those remarks you made. I'm looking down the future, 3 or 4 years or another 5 years. I see how much Bozeman's grown. I've seen how much communities around here have grown. I've seen how much this government has grown and our need for space. We have a good building that does need some work, and we should be taking care of it. I understand it's different funds and everything, but still, we need to take care of the things that we have, or they'll fall into disrepair and we'll end up paying that $10, $20, $30 million to replace the building. I have a feeling in 5 or 10 years we may be looking at, wow, I really wish that we had that building on, and we shouldn't have sold it. And I think we're going to have a $400,000+ head start on it with the money we made selling it, but that still leaves us 19-some million in the hole for it. I think that this idea is short-sighted. I do not like it. I think it's a mistake, and I think I could sit here and talk until I'm blue in the face, and I'm sure everybody out in Radio Land would love me to do so, but I still have some pies I want to bake tonight. I think Mr. O'Leary and I both, and some other commissioners, both understand that this is a mistake. It could go either way, but I think looking down the road, it's not the best use of our time, money, or talents, some of these pursuits that we're making. I do wish you good luck on your current properties. It sounds like you're doing very well. I saw some of the work that you have done in the Thornton building and was really pleased with it. So kudos for the good job you're doing, and I hope you continue it, but I simply cannot support this. But thank you very much for being here tonight. I do appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. There has been a motion made and seconded. Follow-up, Commissioner?
Yes, I would like to make a substitute motion to deny this communication and place it on file.
Okay, there's been a substitute motion made and seconded to deny communication 2025-570 and place it on file. Okay, is there anything on the question? Okay, so the motion that the commissioners are voting on right now is the second substitute motion to deny communication 2025-570 and place on file. If there's nothing on the question, would the commissioners please vote? Okay, would anyone like to change their vote or have any questions on the motion? Okay, would the clerk please record the vote?
3 yea, 9 nay.
Okay, motion fails. We'll move to the first motion, which is to concur with communication 2025-570 and place on file. Is there anything on the question? On the question, Commissioner Mankins.
Thank you, Chairman Morgan, and thank you for all the communication with this, Mr. Riggs being here and answering everything, Karen being here, but I just want to make sure that, you know, Karen and County Attorney Enruth kind of put it on the point that this isn't, you know, this is to kind of get this process going forward with this, but I'd also like to add with that process that to make sure I agree with some of these things that Commissioner O'Leary is saying, that we need to have some timelines. There needs to be some milestones. So please, when you're putting this forward, that you have some of these in there and making sure there is some accountabilities in what we're doing after we sell this building. I really would like to see that and just listen to the council this time so this doesn't get delayed and waste any more of our time moving forward if that isn't followed through. Because it is the final say what goes on after this point and once that resolution is done. So just make sure that things are followed as some of us have asked. But I am definitely in concurrence with Mr. Riggs. I'm almost surprised after so many repairs have been brought up and somebody walked through and said so many things that needs to be done that Mr. Riggs is still willing to go forward with this. So and the first thinking he's going to take care of security, so I don't know if that roof and all the rest of that stuff really needs to be replaced so soon if you're going to take care of security first, but it is a priority of his, so thank you.
Okay. On the question on the motion, Commissioner Anderson.
Thank you once again. I do appreciate that, and I hope some of those things are put in the resolution as it moves forward. That being said, do any of us really believe that any of that will be followed through with? We have these clawback clauses on numerous things, most recently the Park Street property, and we all see how much construction has started on that one. So if we do that, great, but we need to be willing to move forward and hold people accountable, and I have not seen that in my tenure. And second off, why would somebody still be interested in the building even with all of the repairs and everything else it seems to need? That would be because Commissioner O'Leary is 100% correct when he states that this building is drastically incorrectly assessed at that price. That's all. Thank you.
Okay, the motion that's before us tonight is to concur with communication 25-570 and place on file. Is there anything else on the question? Would everyone please vote? Commissioner Shea. Okay, is there anybody that would like to change their vote or have any questions on the motion? Okay, would the clerk please record the vote?
9 yea, 3 nay.
Thank you. Motion passes. Next item on tonight's agenda is any public comment on any public matter that's not on tonight's agenda. If there is a member of the public, now would be your opportunity. Please state your name and address for the record.
Reddy Frost, 2000 Roberts Avenue. I'd just like to wish you all a happy Thanksgiving and Indigenous Peoples Day. Have a wonderful weekend. Stay safe. Don't drive if you're drinking, and have a great one.
Thank you. Is there any other public comment on any public matter not on tonight's agenda? Okay, seeing none, I would ask for a motion to adjourn. All those